Did you know that in 2025, over 65% of British citizens said they no longer felt truly free in their own country? Sounds unbelievable, right? But it's happening, and it's happening fast. Imagine waking up one morning to find out you can't post what you think on social media. You can't protest for what you believe in. You can't even use your money the way you want without someone watching your every move. What's even scarier? Most people didn't even notice it happening until it was too late. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on the 10 shocking freedoms the UK is quietly banning in 2025. Some of them will leave you speechless, some might infuriate you, and a few will make you wonder if the UK is still the country it once was. From internet surveillance, tracking every click you make, to banning everyday cash payments, to censoring what you eat, what you say, and even how you raise your own kids. This isn't some distant future. It's happening right now. Stay with us until the end, because you won't believe how deep this rabbit hole really goes. And trust me, number 7 will make you question everything you thought you knew about freedom. Let's dive in. Number 1. Tightened social media regulations. In 2025, the UK government introduced the Digital Safety Act, a sweeping piece of legislation that reshaped how people interact online. While officials claim it's designed to protect users from harmful content, critics argue it represents a major restriction on free expression. Under the new rules, social media platforms must immediately remove content deemed harmful, even if it's not illegal. That means a controversial opinion, a misunderstood joke, or even a passionate debate could be taken down within hours. Platforms like Facebook, X, formerly Twitter, and TikTok now face massive fines if they don't comply. This pressure has led them to implement automatic censorship systems, which often flag innocent posts by mistake. Users have reported their accounts being suspended or banned simply for sharing political opinions or raising sensitive topics. Another part of the law makes it illegal to send harmful communications online, even in private messages. Imagine getting into a heated private conversation with a friend and suddenly facing a criminal investigation because an algorithm flagged your words. These changes have chilled open discussion, especially among young creators and activists who fear speaking their minds could lead to legal trouble. Critics argue that while online safety is important, the broad definitions in the law allow for dangerous overreach. In short, the UK's new approach to social media in 2025 represents a historic shift. From open dialogue towards strict control, leaving many wondering, is digital freedom becoming a thing of the past? Number 2. Crackdown on public protests. UK government passed the controversial Public Order Act, dramatically limiting citizens' rights to protest. Authorities now require groups to obtain a special government permit weeks in advance, even for small gatherings. Without it, even a peaceful assembly could be declared illegal on the spot, leading to fines, arrests, and even jail time. Under these new laws, noisy protests can be shut down immediately if they are deemed to cause serious disruption to nearby businesses, traffic, or general public life. The law doesn't clearly define what serious disruption means, leaving it open to broad interpretation by police forces. In major cities like London, Manchester, and Bristol, police have been given expanded powers to impose curfews, restrict movement, and even preemptively detain protest organisers based on suspicion alone. Even before a protest starts, body searches without prior suspicion are now permitted in certain protest prevention zones, sparking widespread fear among activists and human rights groups. For many, these restrictions feel like a direct assault on the UK's long history of free expression and civil disobedience. In previous decades, powerful movements like climate change protests and civil rights marches thrived under more open protest laws. Today, organising a march or sit-in can feel more like preparing for battle than exercising a democratic right. Supporters of the law argue it's necessary to maintain public order, but critics warn that the erosion of protest rights is a slippery slope. Once the ability to gather and speak out is lost, it becomes much harder to demand change. making these new restrictions one of the most alarming shifts of 2025. Number 3. Limits on crypto transactions. UK government implemented sweeping restrictions on cryptocurrency transactions, sparking outrage among investors and tech enthusiasts. Under the new financial security regulations, citizens are now limited to transferring only a small amount of crypto assets per month without declaring it to the authorities. Large transactions must be pre-approved through a government database, where users must disclose the origin of funds, the purpose of the transfer, and personal details of both parties. Authorities claim these restrictions are necessary to combat money laundering and terrorist financing, but many argue it's a thinly veiled attempt to control decentralized finance. Everyday people who once used Bitcoin, Ethereum, or other digital currencies for small business payments, investments, or even personal savings now face heavy bureaucratic barriers. Crypto exchanges operating in the UK must now comply with real-time reporting to the government, tracking each user's activities. Anonymous wallets have been banned outright, making privacy-focused coins like Monero and Zcash essentially unusable within British borders. For ordinary users, this means fewer options for independent wealth management, higher transaction fees, and the constant risk of penalties for failing to report minor errors. Financial freedom, once a major promise of crypto, now feels out of reach for many in the UK. Critics worry that this could set a global precedent, where governments worldwide attempt to centralise digital currencies under their control, undermining the original purpose of decentralisation, giving power back to the people. The crypto crackdown in 2025 is more than just regulation. It's a redefinition of financial independence, forcing citizens to choose between compliance and innovation. Number 4. Restrictions on home education. In 2025, the UK introduced strict new laws targeting home education, changing the landscape for thousands of families. Under the Education Standards Act, all parents choosing to homeschool must now register with a national database and submit detailed curriculum plans for government approval. Spontaneous or alternative teaching methods, once a hallmark of homeschooling, are being heavily regulated. Authorities claim the move is intended to ensure consistent educational quality, but critics argue it strips parents of their fundamental right to decide how their children learn. Annual inspections are now mandatory, where government officials visit homes, assess teaching methods, and even interview children privately to ensure compliance. Previously, homeschooling offered families the flexibility to cater to special needs, cultural values, or innovative learning styles. Now, a rigid national curriculum is enforced, limiting opportunities for creative education. Parents who fail to meet standards risk having their children forcibly enrolled in traditional schools and even facing legal action. Independent education organisations have raised alarms, calling this an unprecedented intrusion into family life. Critics warn that by standardising education, the government is erasing diversity of thought, stifling innovation, and weakening parental authority. Families who once thrived on personalised learning are now struggling to adjust to bureaucratic hurdles, excessive paperwork, and constant scrutiny. Homeschooling, once seen as a path to freedom, now feels like walking a tightrope of compliance. Supporters of the changes argue that educational oversight is necessary to protect children's rights. Yet many parents feel these restrictions signal a broader trend, where individual freedoms are steadily being replaced by state control. Number 5. Ban on flavoured vapes. In 2025, the UK government implemented a sweeping ban on flavoured vapes, targeting everything from fruit blends to dessert-inspired e-liquids. The new regulations, part of the Youth Health Protection Act, aim to reduce vaping among teenagers, but have had a massive impact on adults who use vaping as a safer alternative to smoking. All non-tobacco flavours, like strawberry, mint, vanilla, and bubblegum, are now illegal for sale. Vape shops across cities like London, Birmingham, and Glasgow have either shut down or shifted focus to the limited selection still allowed. Online vape retailers face strict penalties for even advertising banned flavours, forcing many to close overnight. Supporters argue the ban is necessary because youth vaping rates have skyrocketed in recent years. However, critics point out that flavoured vapes were crucial for adult smokers transitioning away from traditional cigarettes. Removing them might push people back to far more harmful habits. The market has seen a rise in black market products, as desperate users seek their favourite flavours through illegal means. This creates a new health crisis. Unregulated vapes containing unknown chemicals are now spreading fast. Health experts are divided. While reducing youth vaping is a priority, some believe the one-size-fits-all ban ignores the bigger picture. Adult harm reduction strategies have been sidelined, and millions who once felt empowered to quit smoking now feel punished. The ban on flavoured vapes in 2025 highlights a growing trend. Public health policies prioritising control over personal choice. It's a bold reminder that even products designed to save lives can become casualties in the battle over freedom and regulation. Number 6. Mandatory digital IDs. UK officially rolled out mandatory digital IDs for all residents, a move that has sparked intense debate about privacy and government control. Every citizen must now carry a government-issued digital identification linked directly to bank accounts, medical records, employment history, and even social media profiles. The government insists the unified digital identity system will make public services more efficient, secure, and fraud-proof. Applying for a job, accessing healthcare, opening a bank account, all now require instant verification through your digital ID app. On the surface, it promises convenience, but beneath that convenience lies a deep concern for surveillance. Critics warn that the system creates a centralized database vulnerable to hacking, misuse, and state overreach. Citizens effectively leave a digital footprint for every action they take, from shopping to browsing the internet. It raises chilling questions about how much the government knows and what it can do with that information. Perhaps most concerning, participation is no longer optional. If you fail to register for a digital ID, you could face denial of basic services, restricted travel, or even penalties. For many, this feels like a transformation from citizen to data point, where freedom of movement, privacy, and autonomy are sacrificed at the altar of security. While some embrace the streamlined future, others fear the loss of anonymity, increased surveillance, and potential abuse of power. What started as a simple ID card has evolved into an all-encompassing tool, making the mandatory digital ID rollout one of the most controversial changes in the UK's history. Number 7. Tighter free speech laws. In 2025, the UK introduced a wave of tighter free speech laws, dramatically redefining what can and cannot be said both publicly and privately. Under the new Harmful Communications Act, any speech that could potentially cause emotional distress, even unintentionally, can now be classified as criminal. Previously, freedom of speech allowed for vigorous debates, controversial opinions, and critical discussions. Today, the legal line has shifted. Even private conversations, text messages, or social media DMs can be monitored for harmful language, with potential consequences ranging from fines to imprisonment. This broad definition has sparked major concerns about self-censorship. Universities, once known for open dialogue and challenging ideas, now enforce strict speech codes. Professors and students alike fear that a misinterpreted comment could lead to disciplinary action or public backlash. In workplaces, casual jokes or offhand remarks are under intense scrutiny. Companies are mandated to report any harmful communication incidents to the authorities, creating a culture of fear and caution. Even comedians, writers, and journalists have begun to pull back, unsure where the invisible line lies. Supporters argue that the laws aim to create a safer, more inclusive environment, particularly for vulnerable communities. However, critics warn that over-regulation of speech threatens democracy itself, where freedom of thought and expression are vital for societal growth. By 2025, the UK's battle over free speech has shifted from a question of rights to a question of control. And in this new reality, choosing your words carefully has never been more critical or more chilling. Number 8. New limits on cash usage. UK took another major step toward a cashless society by introducing strict limits on cash usage. Under the new Financial Modernisation Act, any cash transactions above £500 are now illegal unless specifically reported to the authorities. Even small frequent cash payments are being scrutinised under anti-money laundering protocols. The official narrative claims that these measures are necessary to prevent crime, tax evasion, and financial fraud. However, critics see it as a direct attack on financial privacy and a way to force citizens into the digital banking system. For many small businesses, street vendors, and elderly citizens who prefer cash for simplicity, these new rules feel like an unfair burden. Banks are also being encouraged to phase out cash services. ATMs are disappearing from rural and suburban areas at an alarming rate, and more stores have switched to card-only policies, citing legal convenience. Even charities collecting cash donations must now register every collection and justify the source of funds. Supporters argue that a cashless economy is more efficient, traceable, and secure, but opponents warn that total traceability means total control. Every purchase, no matter how small, can be tracked, analysed, and potentially restricted in the future. For ordinary citizens, the limit on cash represents more than a financial adjustment. It signals the end of anonymous transactions and the rise of total surveillance economics. A simple act, like buying a cup of coffee, could soon become part of your permanent financial record, all in the name of progress. Number 9. Internet surveillance expansion. In 2025, the UK government dramatically expanded its internet surveillance programs, introducing new regulations under the Online Safety Enhancement Act. Internet service providers are now legally required to track, store, and hand over user data for a minimum of 5 years. This includes browsing history, messages, emails, and even metadata from encrypted apps like WhatsApp and Signal. Authorities claim these measures are critical for national security and crime prevention. However, for millions of ordinary users, it feels like living under a digital microscope. Even casual activities, searching for a recipe, reading political articles, or chatting with friends, are now recorded and stored without explicit consent. Privacy advocates have warned that this level of mass surveillance creates a chilling effect. When people know they're being watched, they naturally self-censor, limiting their own freedom of thought and expression. Ironically, the very tools designed to connect people are now being used to monitor them. The expansion also introduces active scanning, where AI algorithms scan your content for flagged terms or suspicious behavior, often without a warrant. This proactive monitoring blurs the line between targeted investigation and blanket surveillance. Supporters argue that expanded surveillance helps catch terrorists, criminals, and dangerous conspiracies before they grow. Critics counter that it opens the door to government overreach, data breaches, and the erosion of personal autonomy. In 2025, the UK's internet no longer feels like a wild frontier of ideas. It feels more like a guarded city where every click, comment, and conversation could potentially be used against you. Number 10. Severe restrictions on food advertising. In 2025, the UK enforced severe restrictions on food advertising, targeting anything classified as unhealthy under the new Healthy Nations initiative. High sugar, high fat, and high salt products, from crisps and sweets to fast food, are now banned from advertising before 9 p.m, both on television and online platforms. The policy was designed to combat rising obesity rates, especially among children. However, its impact has been far-reaching and, for many, devastating. Small food businesses that once relied on creative advertising to compete with larger brands have been pushed to the margins, struggling to survive in a now heavily regulated market. Social media influencers, food bloggers, and even recipe creators must comply with strict disclosure laws. Posting a picture of a cheeseburger without a government-approved health warning can result in fines or content takedowns. Entire advertising sectors, from billboards to YouTube sponsorships, have been transformed overnight. Critics argue that while public health is important, these laws amount to economic censorship, unfairly targeting small businesses while letting larger corporations navigate the system with legal loopholes. Supporters believe the restrictions will protect the younger generation from aggressive marketing tactics, but opponents fear it sets a dangerous precedent for government interference in consumer choice. Beyond fast food, the definition of unhealthy continues to expand, leading some to wonder if advertisements for cheese, butter, or even homemade cakes could soon face the same fate. The severe restrictions on food advertising in 2025 reveal a deeper question. Where is the line between public health and personal freedom? The freedoms we often take for granted are slipping away, one quiet law at a time. In 2025, the UK has shown just how quickly rights can shrink, sometimes not with loud announcements, but with small changes that snowball into something far bigger. When protests need permission, when your bank account is tied to a government ID, and when even your private messages are monitored, you have to ask yourself, is this truly about safety or is it about control? We aren't here to tell you what to think. We're here to make sure you do think before it's too late. Because history shows, once freedoms are given up, they are almost never given back. Every new rule comes dressed in promises of protection, but hidden underneath is a simple truth. Freedom requires risk. Without the freedom to make mistakes, to speak out, and to live without constant surveillance, we are no longer citizens. We are simply subjects. If this video opened your eyes, don't just scroll away. Comment below, which freedom do you fear losing the most? We read every single one because your voice matters. And if you believe in staying informed, smash that subscribe button. It's just one click, but it means the world to us.